Hi there, welcome to Probably Elsewhere. My name is Rena Catherine, and today we're going to be talking about my disabilities and how I got that diagnoses for all of them, which I have never actually given the full story before. I have no idea what I'm going to say. I've literally never told the whole story. I've told snippets to random people, never the whole thing. So again, I have no idea what I'm going to say. I have no idea how this is going to turn out, but we're going to do it anyway. So as a little bit of a background, I have 4 official diagnoses that are related to having a disability: ADD, ADHD, executive functioning disorder, and Asperger's, otherwise known as high functioning autism. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so starting off, when I was young, like 4, 5, 6 years old, looking back now, I kind of realized that, like, oh, this would have been a really good hint. So I never cried. First of all, I didn't cry. The first time that I cried outside of like hurting myself, but I didn't even cry when I hurt myself, was when I was 16. That was the first time that I had cried. Like, I didn't even cry when I was a baby. I don't know if it's just because my parents were intuitive to what I needed or what, but I didn't cry. So anyway, when I was at that age where you started to do like playdates, when you started to do playdates, I would do exactly what the other children were doing, that like I was having the playdate with. I never had an opinion on what I wanted to do. I thought that whatever other people wanted to do was what you should do. Does that make sense? Like what the other people do is what all people should do. So if they wanted to sit down and read all day or color literally all day, that was what we were supposed to do, because that's what they wanted to do. When they wanted to run in the mud and climb trees and do stuff like that, that was fine. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't really have my own set of interests. I thought that what everyone else wanted to do, all of the other kids, all of the other adults, and that's just the way that everyone did it, was that, these are just set things that you're supposed to do. You aren't supposed to have your own wants. And then we moved. The next kind of like big thing, I guess, was when I was 7. We moved from Ohio to Florida. I was in 2nd grade. I was ahead educationally because the Ohio schooling system is ahead of Florida. So I already knew most of the material. A lot of the kids would bully me for it. I thought that it was just because I knew it and they didn't, but I realized it was because they could kind of take advantage of the system and the fact that I would just give them the answers, and they could really manipulate me, because I didn't know that there was really a difference between right and wrong. A lot of people would be like, oh no, you can't do something, and I'd be like, okay, cool, yeah, I won't do that then. Or someone would say like, oh, pants her or something, and I'd be like, oh, okay, cool, that's what I'm supposed to do. I will go pants her. That's what you're supposed to do in this situation. So I was really manipulated, and I was sent to the principal a lot. I got into trouble a lot, but it's because I didn't know any better. And I don't know if that's because I was a child or if it's because of the autism. I don't know. But it was like at that time that I started to really notice that I don't want to say different, because I know that everyone goes through childhood differently, and it is super dependent on your own filters of your experiences. But I had just like begged my parents to take me out of school. I wanted to be homeschooled. I wasn't happy. I was not happy. I did not fit in at all, and I knew that, and they had made it very clear. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to be one with the other students. So we moved schools. I transferred to a different school, and third grade was great. I still got into a lot of trouble. I was still trying to figure out the right things to say, the right things to do. I absolutely loved the teacher, but there was a lot of conflict between us. And then in fourth grade, the bullying kind of started again. I don't know why. I don't know why it started again, but it just did. And I was still ahead of the class. There was one time where we were supposed to write, like it was for Pie Day, and we were supposed to write a little essay on like a cut, how to make a pie piece, a cut piece of pie. Again, I don't know how to make a pie piece. And it was only supposed to be like 4 pages, I think. Just 4 of those little pie pages. And I wrote 40 pages, and I like completely rewrote The Wizard of Oz revolving around pie. Don't know how I did it, but I did it. And the bullying still went on. I just felt super out of place. I had started dance. I wasn't making friends there. All that I could do was just watch the other people and try to do exactly what they were doing. And I just had absolutely no grasp of like my own internal sense of socialization. It just wasn't there. I had to have the dance teacher tell me exactly what muscles I should feel in my arms and in my whole body while I was dancing for every single dance move. It was getting to the point where I didn't know how to count and dance at the same time. It wasn't until I was in marching band in high school, no, in college. It was when I did marching band in college that I could finally figure out like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and how to do that together. It just did not click at all. And then, no, okay, yeah. So anyway, so in 4th grade, we had made the decision that if I tested positive for gifted, that I would also be accelerated a grade. So that's what happened. So when I came back from winter break in 4th grade, I was placed in a 5th grade class, and then that went a little bit more smoothly. I felt like I could connect a little bit more with the students. I loved the teacher. And then in 6th grade, that was fine. Math sucked though, because because with the gifted program, it went from, like if you were in 6th grade, you were in pre-algebra. So I did not get math in 4th grade. I did not get math in 5th grade, 4th and 5th grade. I just didn't learn any of the math, pretty much. So I went from 3rd grade math to pre-algebra, and that screwed me over for like all the way up until now, because I have such deficits with math and major insecurities with my performance in that. It just would not click. So I went to tutors, I went to everything. Everyone would get super frustrated because they would explain it and explain it and explain it, and it would take 5 or 6 times before I could understand like a simple substitution or something like that. Like as soon as you turned a fraction, a positive fraction, into a negative fraction, and I had to do something with it, oh boy, it was just a completely different idea. And so that was hard. And I had to sit down and pretty much teach myself every single scenario that I could encounter with every single math problem. And it was a lot of work. And then during that time too, I was still in dance and I was doing that. My best friend throughout all of the dance stuff was a high schooler. She was my big sister. Molly. She's a great person. She really helped me a lot, kind of like figure things out, and like no matter what, I was totally accepted, which was nice because I had never been told that it was okay to be a little weird, because that was what we're taught, that if you're different, you're weird, and that's okay. And she's the one that taught me that it's okay that I view the world the way that I do, even though I didn't understand why I was viewing it differently. And like I had other friends, I would, they would plan things in front of my face. I wouldn't care. I did not care. I wouldn't be invited to them. It was fine. That happened like all the way through high school. I was definitely one of the, my mom really likes to tell this story, but I was sitting at like the popular table because I've always been a really good listener, because it's a good way to learn and things like that. And I was sitting at what was deemed the popular table, and all of the students, all the other kids were just talking about the most random and idiotic stuff. And I would go home and tell my mom that man, they just aren't interesting people. And then she'd be like, well, why don't you move tables? Well, this is my seat. This is my seat. Why would I move? So she just thought that was the funniest thing, that I didn't know that I could change seats, and that I didn't have to be around those people, and that I didn't have to listen to that, or that I could start my own conversation. I had no idea that I could start my own conversation and change the topic. So that was cool to learn, that I could actually, that I didn't have to be at the disposal of other people. I'm still kind of struggling with that I can be my own entity and not have it be totally dependent on other people. So anyway, we started to get into high school, started marching band, started color guard, started all of that. I was in a higher, I don't want to say skilled, I was in a magnet program that was based on international studies. So it was heavily AP based, it was heavily experiential based. You had to document everything that you did, you had to write about everything. And I loved it. It was right up my alley. I love international affairs, I love learning about other cultures, I love learning religions. So I love that. Everyone that was there was great people. I loved being in marching band. But we started to realize that the deficits that I had in middle school weren't going away, because there was this whole idea that it takes time for these ideas to kind of process and come into fruition, and it wasn't working. And I'm one of those people who don't like to say no and don't like to understand that I have limits. So I just kept piling things on, and I almost failed out of high school. I almost got kicked out of the magnet. I was only there because I was in the magnet. Otherwise, I would have had to completely transfer schools because I was out of the school zone. So it turned into like a huge, huge fight, because I didn't know how to ask the teachers for help. I didn't know that I could ask the teachers for help. I didn't know that I could ask the school counselor for help. I didn't know what to say. I did not know how to explain the struggles that I was having with the learning material. I didn't know how to explain that, because I had been dancing for so long, I didn't know how to tell the people, like, hey, slow down. I have absolutely no idea how I memorized the dances. No idea. I have no idea how I memorized music. I have no idea how I memorized choreography. No idea. But it was just, there was this language that I was missing, and I didn't feel comfortable going up to people, to these adults, and saying, hey, I need help, but not being able to explain why, because I didn't even know how to do it. So I thought that maybe if I could figure out why I was struggling so much, and like in my head, I just thought that it was, I'm just not spending enough time on it, or I don't know what I'm supposed to know. So how could I not over-prepare? And I had no idea how other students were finishing their schoolwork in an hour, and it would take me 5 hours to do the exact same amount of work. And my mom had started to notice that it was partially because I would sit down and then there would be, like for one of my classes, we were going over like Chinese history, and I got on foot binding, and I was like, oh, this is really similar to point. And then it went on to the next 3 hours that were spent researching foot binding and the medical implications of that, and other Chinese, ancient Chinese traditions and things like that. And then I got moved on to like the Huns and things like that. So it was just thing after thing after thing. And I was like, well, but if I need to know this one specific detail, why wouldn't I need to know all of these other things to back it up? Because I had no idea what the teacher would want, because it would be this open-ended question. I love open-ended questions, but from a scholastic standpoint, for people that have any of these disabilities, it is so hard to not go into more detail than you need, because you just don't know. And everything is so interesting, but you just don't know what you're going to need to know for the test when it's these open-ended questions, which I can understand why they're important to do, because I think that pretty much for all learning styles, multiple choice, if it's for ideas and concepts, doesn't solidify the material. But so that was kind of like the first thing. So that was like, okay, well, maybe you have ADHD, because you can't focus, because you get this one idea and then you go off on all these other ones and you're like a squirrel or whatever. God, I hate that. But so we went to a psychiatrist. I totally bombed the test, the one where it's like the little dot and you had to watch when it would hit or whatever. I don't remember what it was. I bombed it. So I was put on medication, and we had started the conversation with the school district, and they said, well, cheat. I was like, excuse me? And they're like, yeah, that's what every other student does. They all cheat. And if that's the way that they pass and that's the way that they learn the material, then that is good enough. And if that's what you need to do in order to stay in the school system, then that's what you need to do. So that royally kicked all of us off, all of my family, because that's not fair. That's not fair for any student that's trying to learn, and that's not going to prepare anyone for the rest of their life, is to just tell them to cheat. So we had given it a try with like an individual education plan and things like that. That also didn't work. I almost failed out of school like 3 different times. I had almost gotten my grades up, and then something would happen and I couldn't. I had just missed too much, and I just kept telling myself, like, if I can just sit down and get through this, then I'll be fine. But getting through this was like, here's all of these other assignments that you have that you've missed in the past, and then here's all of these assignments that you need to do now. And nobody can do that. Nobody can catch up on that much work. So I somehow graduated, and then started school. Thought that I would change, thought that it would be easier because I was away from home. I'd be able to kind of explore all of these new paths for who I am and everything like that. And if I knew who I was, then maybe school would be easier. I was finally able to learn things that I was really interested in. But my original 2 majors, I did not like. They weren't what I thought I was going to be. So then I went through those 2 years, and I legitimately was about to fail out of school. There were a few traumatic things that had happened during that time, and I thought that it was because of that, and because my grandma died. I had a Title IX experience. So I had a Title IX experience. My grandmother died, and I had whooping cough. It wasn't diagnosed. They thought that I had bronchitis for 3 months, or that I had allergy-induced asthma, and I was just allergic to Salt Lake City because of the inversion. But I think it was whooping cough. Going off of the symptoms, I think it was whooping cough. And I demand retribution for that. But anyway, so that was all within my first semester of being out here 2,000 miles away from home by myself. So that was hard to get through in the first place. And I thought, just maybe if I made friends or something. So I joined a sorority. I met a lot of really great girls in there, but I just didn't really align with a lot of their personal values, so there was some conflict with that, so I ended up dropping. Marching band was great, but I love marching. I always love marching band. I love music. And I made some really good friends there that I'm still friends with now. And I just kept telling myself, if I just find one thing that I'm super passionate about and that I can do, then everything will turn around. But it didn't. It didn't. So kind of like as a last, like, something is wrong. We need to figure out why you can't get your assignments done. We need to figure out why. We just need to figure out why. We need to figure out something. Like, we already know that you have ADD, but there is still conflict with that because it was really popular at the time to just go and get your kid diagnosed and get them medicated and just pay off the doctor. And you just pay the doctor, we'll get you your diagnosis, we'll calm your kid down, and that'll be fine. That'll be the end of it. So we just didn't know for sure. And we thought that, like, it's just my bubbly personality, and that's why I can't remember things, and that's why I get distracted all the time. So we ended up going to a neurobehavioral center, and I did all the tests. We went in with, like, the initial concerns. My mom had been back and forth with them a few times, and in January of 2018, that's when I was officially diagnosed with the ADD and the ADHD, the executive functioning disorder, and the Asperger's. I was able to finally just take a breath, partially because with the Asperger's, I begged my parents to get me tested because I just knew that something wasn't right, and I was like, man, if I could just, I don't know if this sounds weird or wrong, but this is how I felt. For like 5 or 6 years, I just begged my parents to get me tested because I knew that something was off. I had related so much with the stories that I was hearing about people with autism, or with Asperger's, and I thought that, maybe that could solve some of the problems. It's just if I had gotten tested, and I honestly wonder if I had gotten tested earlier, if I would have struggled so much. I doubt that I would have struggled so much with school. And like, my mom loves to joke all the time about when we were preparing for my 16th birthday, I didn't want a cake because I don't like cake, but she loves cake, so we had to get a cake. And we were at Publix, and I just didn't want any of them. And then I loved watching Jake and the Neverland Pirates, even as a teenager. And you know what? I'm proud of it because it was a good show. Pirates are cool. Even the kid ones on Disney shows. And I had a full-on meltdown. I had a full-on meltdown in the middle of Publix because my mom just wasn't listening to me, and I felt so uncomfortable. And why would anyone want to go to a birthday party that had Jake and the Neverland Pirate cupcakes? And I was just total mess. And she was like, oh yeah, well, you know what? That would have been a good clue that maybe yeah, you did have Asperger's. And I was like, you think? Maybe there were a few other times too. Maybe the fact that I didn't cry at all during that time, that people would verbally abuse me, and I just was just unfazed. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to react. I didn't know how to respond. We kind of realized that, like, the anxiety attacks that I was having in high school weren't actually anxiety attacks. It was, I was coming home after a very, like, sensitivity, just overflow day. And that was the only way that I knew how to cope, was just completely breaking down when I got home. And we realized that a lot of my stems, so I like to rub my fingers over each other over my nails. I like to I count a lot. When I'm driving, I like tap my toes to go with the shadows against the side, and like each toe will go with each shadow on each side. And those are just because I get super overstimulated when I'm driving, because there's just so many things to pay attention to, and my eyes can't do all that. And cars' ACs are very uncomfortable anyway. But it was such a relief to get diagnosed, because then I could finally explore more of the reason why I was behaving the way that I did, and that it is normal, and that girls have a completely different experience with these things than guys do, but nobody talks about it. There's like very little like media perception of it. There's very little like just outward spokesmanship of it. So I was only going off of the male perception, and a lot of times when I bring it up to other people, they're like, oh, well, I know this person, this male who has Asperger's, and you don't act anything like him. Or like, oh, you have too much of a personality to be someone with Asperger's. And it's like, are you telling me that just because I have a disability, I'm not allowed to have a personality? Because that is rude, first of all. And I'm not just defined by my disabilities, thank you. And I also have these other things. There's so much more to me than just these disabilities. And holy freaking smokes, the whole executive functioning disorder, I did not know that that was a thing, but thank God it is, and that there's language surrounding it, and that we now know that it takes me hearing something 5 times to understand it, the same way that a neurotypical person hearing it 1 time understands it, because that explains my entire high school career and learning career and everything career. And I'm so thankful that I was able to get diagnosed, because without having the language that surrounds the diagnosis to be able to talk to the people that can help me effectively navigate, instead of just feeling like a fish swimming upstream, throughout everything that I've had to do to become the minimally adult person that I am in the position that I am in, I don't think I would have made it. I think that I would have had to drop out. I think I would have officially had to drop out of school. I think that I would have had to move home. I don't think that I would have been successful. I don't think I would have been able to do it. I don't think so. So anyway, I'll probably make another one of these, just because I feel like there's a lot of information to unpack and a little bit more details that I can go into. But basically, it took until I was 19 to learn that I had these different disabilities, and I definitely think that there should be more awareness for these, and a lot more testing. I don't think that you should have to fight to get your kid tested so that they can just be helped, because I have benefited so much from my diagnosis and being able to, again, have the language, because that was the biggest thing that held me back throughout all of this, was that I did not know how to explain what I was going through, and to explain that I need help, and that there could even be help educationally for any of this, and functionally. And I have gone to many, many hours of therapy now to kind of help me understand how to appropriately navigate, and to kind of unpack all the camouflaging that I've had to do, and how to better just like go through what it means to have these disabilities. So yeah, that's my story. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching.